Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about the 3738 count indictment of Donaldo Trumpi, what I think, and my advice to those of you who are still strongly on this MAGA train. Now, conservatives are responding as we would expect. It's a witch hunt. They're trying to get him. It's rigged. Yada yada. Now, these folks have no choice, in fairness to them. They hitched themselves to what originally was a very good movement about national sovereignty, the working class, whatnot, but unfortunately it devolved into an ideology of Trump the man, and especially the man's ego. So if you call him out, even if you're factually correct, if you say he's being unethical, he's lying, well, sorry, that means you're part of the swamp, you're a rhino, you're suspect, and you should be readily dispensed with. And you'll have characters such as, all right, everyone, I've been filleting Trump for about 8 years now. The money's good, so I have no reason to stop. These are individuals who may have a relatively high IQ, and they subvert it so that they can shill to his base, much like he does. And more on that later in the video. But let's be honest, Trump was a system shock. As far as his policies, not really, but he did rustle feathers. He called out alphabet agencies, the media, in ways they didn't like. So what happens is that an institution has to reassert itself. Otherwise, there'll be no public trust. That's what's happening with Trump. Mind you, Trump failed to defend the institution of the presidency, as I talked about in the conservatism book, when he was weak on Antifa, BLM, and of course, when it came to this farmer bro takeover, he did very little. So he shrunk from power. And now they have the opportunity, they're making an example of him, because otherwise, if no one trusts or respects laws or certain organizations, every politician will be like Trump. They'll just disregard and go their own merry way, which will create instability and problems in terms of legitimacy for those groups. This is not, of course, to say that they're just out to get him simply because he's Trump, simply because he created some instability. Yeah, the case in New York was a bunch of nonsense. It's largely contrived. I'm not sure how exactly they're going to try to pinpoint it for him. But this documents one is different. And no saying, oh, what about Hillary is not a defense, because Hillary is not truly a precedent. Yes, it looks bad politically, but they're different cases with different terms. The main reason why Trump was charged is not because he had these documents, it's because of his response to them being requested that they be returned. Now, he had multiple lawyers that were telling him, you need to cooperate and stop playing this game. He was the one refusing. He was citing Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, who's basically this rage pill conservative guy who tries to thrive off of drama. And, oh, you don't have to because of this 1978 law, this 1988 Supreme Court decision. Even if you believe that to be the case, the appropriate response is you sue them to say you don't have to give them back, and you let it play out. And if you lose, you give them back. Or you hand this stuff over, and then you sue them to say, no, I can actually have that under these certain statutes. You don't have this sort of recalcitrant attitude, and then you're trying to move documents so they're not found. You're, of course, keeping them in places they shouldn't be. This is what makes you think, on the one hand, he's either a very conniving, corrupt individual who knows what he's doing. This goes to the claim about maybe Saudi Arabia got some information. That's why they put $2 billion in the hands of Kushner's investment fund after Trump left office, or close around that time. Or he's a moron who doesn't understand and can't learn. It's got to be something in there, because his behavior makes no sense, particularly when you've already been scrutinized for so long. You want to be trying to act in such a manner that's not going to create more problems for yourself. So that's why I'm saying he's either very corrupt and he's just trying to lie to his audience, say that he's innocent, or he's a moron, or maybe it's a combination of the two. This is the problem with someone who is a tremendous narcissist, because what they tend to do, and you'll see it throughout in different figures, I could bring up others, they do stuff that gets them in trouble, and then they claim, I never did that. Because they're usually a pathological liar, not just a narcissist. They go hand in hand. Case in point, the meeting with Comey. Now, I don't believe James Comey is some Boy Scout with a higher loyalty. He's a conceited individual. That being said, you as president, when you're under scrutiny already with the Russia nonsense, you do not have a one-on-one private meeting without aides in the room, without anyone recording it, and say stuff that's a little bit sus. That's just a bad idea. You want to stay as far away from an individual, a federal prosecutor, as possible. Once more, he's either being corrupt because he wants the dude to serve him, or he's just an idiot who doesn't understand the situation that he's in. But that alone was not the problem. The issue is that he proceeds to fire the guy haphazardly without following appropriate procedure, which just makes it look even worse because you're in the middle of an investigation about the Russia stupidity. He could have just said, let it be. I want to focus on the country, infrastructure, taxes, immigration. And this, I should note quickly, those of you saying he was really anti-establishment, dude, he was the most pro-Care Bear president in U.S. history. He was pro-deregulation, so industries don't have to abide by rules and can pollute more easily. He gave a massive corporate tax cut. He let the BLM people out of prison. He was pardoning a bunch of Care Bears. The idea that this guy was really fighting for the working class, that's why they had to do a color revolution and get rid of him, is nonsensical. He cut immigration a little bit, but a lot of it was because of the pandemic. And he certainly didn't pass like some draconian measure taking us back to 1924. So just let's be realistic. There is this tendency with Trump supporters to have this Manichaean view of everything's against Trump. So no matter what Trump does, he's always the victim, he's always the good guy. And that's not truthfully the case. And we can continue as we see other instances. I personally saw the Ukraine thing as a bunch of nonsense contrived by Democrats, but you get to 2020, the election, as I've said, I don't believe that he necessarily lost because of fraud. I've read Molly Ziegler Hemingway. Her book is kind of an embarrassment. It's pretty poorly done. It's essentially Trump was amazing. Why did he lose? Now, other people came, you don't have the real information. There's all this evidence. It's damning. Why didn't his lawyers present that evidence? And more importantly, why did judges, especially those that he appointed, were slapping it down left, right, and center? So then the MAGA people go, well, it's an even bigger conspiracy. You don't know how large it goes. Everyone's part of the swamp. Well, that's also very convenient if you lose an argument to just say, oh, well, I have no control over the terms. And that for that, how do you know that the 2016 election wasn't rigged? After all, supposedly in pure figures, Hillary got more votes nationally, whether you believe those or not. So it doesn't make much sense, right? All these conservative judges are saying you're full of crap. These claims are being, in large part, found to not be true, like the mailman in Pennsylvania that he was supposedly coaxed into saying certain things. But if you can show it, that's fine. Now, there is a history of voter fraud. If you read the book Deliver the Vote throughout American history, history. But the point being, you need to present something more than simply, oh, yeah, we didn't win, therefore we think there's this evidence. So that all goes about. He keeps running around saying it's stolen, it's fraudulent, riling up his supporters. Mind you, in private, he's admitting that he lost the election to Biden. And so these individuals get angry, oh, we've got to save the country. Some of them get out of hand. And then he turns around and says, oh, I didn't do anything. That was Antifa. Oh, that was, it was all a setup. But he doesn't even bail out the people who stood by him to the end. So you see how he views his supporters essentially as pawns and means to his own ends, not necessarily the good of the country. Because he could have just said, let it play out legally, and then try again next time, strengthen the laws. But he was trying to go through all these processes that had some people ruin their lives. And there's no guarantee they're going to get a pardon in the future if they said, well, you were violent towards law enforcement. You're not going to get a pardon. So he ultimately does bear responsibility, but he won't take ownership of it because it could potentially have hurt him in the impeachment trial. So it's always about his own personal self-interest above the people who stand with him. And another indication that the guy probably is more guilty than you realize is that he can't secure decent legal representation. He started out during the impeachment, he had high-end lawyers, respected people. Now he's down to this Middle Eastern hijabi who went to some random law school, or Jenna Ellis, who's a clown. Giuliani lost his license. Sidney Powell's probably going to, Jeffrey Clark, John Eastman, because he is an undisciplined client. He does stupid things that shoot him in the foot. And then he's, again, saying, oh, I'm a victim, even though he's responsible for things that have happened to him, which is why, very likely, even if it is South Florida, unless the judge interferes and tries to dismiss the charges, there's a very good chance that he's going to be convicted and sent away For all these reasons, I encourage those of you who are big Trump fans to just take a bit of a deep breath and consider how much you really want to put yourself on the line for this guy. He's shown before on multiple occasions he doesn't care about individuals that stood by him unless you believe it's some grander 4D chess where, oh, if they're all in prison, it'll make the system destabilize and it'll bring me back into power, which is a very cynical and self serving mentality, to be honest. Don't do something stupid. Don't be one of these, MAGA boomers that you're going to screw up your life for a guy who ultimately doesn't really care about you. Just at a certain point, because my theory, my suspicion is, as it becomes more probable that he's going to go to prison, he's going to try to burn down the system with him. So he's probably going to tell his supporters to do a MAGA chimp out. And you have to ask yourself, do you care enough about this guy, or you believe he cares enough about the country to go down with that? My advice is stay the hell away. Do not screw up your own existence for this dude. He's had plenty of opportunities to deliver for the people. And most of the time he was spent grifting for his family and pursuing his own ego at the expense of the people who actually put him in office. So, yeah, let me know. I'm sure some are going to be angry, but that's my take on this whole situation.